Well, ladies and gentlemen, this must have slipped right under my nose when it comes to renovations. Normally I can smell them out, but this article coming out before Christmas, I guess I missed it. We do actually have the wish list of what the Baltimore Orioles want, and apparently this is a bigger renovation than I thought. I guess I misread the original agreement. I thought they were giving the Ravens and the Orioles $600 million dollars to split. Apparently, they're both getting $600 million dollars for renovations, which honestly makes that M&T Bank Stadium renovation really lackluster. That's $600 million dollars. That's all you can do. But that's neither here nor there. What changes might come to Camden Yards? Orioles Stadium Authority have made wish lists. You can see, but the ballpark has aged and design trends have moved on. Yeah, so you look at the other two main ballparks built around the same time as Camden Yards, both Coors Field and Progressive Field getting upper deck outfield renovations, and this one is headed on the exact same path. It's just going to happen about a decade later. There's been no crazy renovations to this stadium since it originally opened in the early 90s. You can see the first round of borrowing money for the upgrades would happen by July 1st of 2025, meaning it could take until the end of the 2025 season for fans, workers, and even players to see shovels in the ground. So they're saying, obviously this year there's no renovations, but even this offseason they might not get started on them. I wonder when the renderings will come out. You can see at the bottom, here's a look at what might be coming to Oriole Park at Camden Yards, and this is the wish list. Adding a field level restaurant with seating and suites. So a field level restaurant, where would that go? I would imagine down the first base or third base line. That's very interesting. A field level restaurant. Or maybe in the outfield. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by field level. Yeah, they could just put it in the outfield behind the wall. That's kind of gimmicky, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. Expanding the flag court by removing some of the bleacher seats beneath the outfield scoreboard to create a center field bar hospitality area. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that, but I understand. So I would imagine I'll try and zoom it in when I edit this to show you exactly where they're talking about, but I think I know the place that they're going to be taking out. They're going to probably take all those seats out and put a bar area. And then here's the big one, removing upper deck seats in left field, which were often closed during the 2023 season. Yeah, so originally Oriole Park at Camden Yards did not do what Progressive Field did. They would always have the left field upper deck open until recently. Recently, the past few seasons, they've completely closed it off. It does make more sense because you don't have to put workers out there, things like that. They want to create social spaces, relocated and expanded kid zone, various seating options, and a bar outdoor restaurant. Okay, so there it is. They might go with a very similar design to Coors Field where they put a restaurant or a bar out beyond left field in the upper deck and take, I guess, most of those seats out. Now, what the Guardians and the Rockies both did is they had little sections that were part of the upper deck, but they weren't really connected to the other seats, and they kept those sections there. So technically, there was still upper deck seating. The Orioles ballpark, the way it's designed, they might do that, I guess, but the upper deck's designed a little bit differently than the Coors Field upper deck was and the Progressive Field upper deck was. So it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing if they keep seats. I would imagine they probably will, otherwise it'll look really weird. And it is very important. At this point, the Guardians have just completely botched their renovation to the right field upper deck. Both of them. They had the shipping containers, which were terrible. And whatever this renovation is, it's horrible. It's just cheap, you can tell. So it's very important that you put preferably a restaurant or some type of bar area, some building up beyond the left field upper deck area. If you don't do that, you're going to run into the exact same problem the Guardians have, where they have the hollowed out former supports of the upper deck. And you can see them. It's the same problem that FedEx Field has. So it's very important that you put some type of bar building up there. You can see the Coors Field upper deck is massive, but they've hidden all of the supports behind the buildings and the complex that they have up there. They've got like 3 different buildings, smaller buildings for sure, but still it's like a floating bar. It's really cool. So when it comes to taking seats out of an outfield upper deck, it's very important that you have to fill it with something. You can't just leave it open like the Guardians, otherwise you're going to end up with another FedEx Field situation where you can see the bare naked supports, which is a horrible, horrible look. So I would imagine they're hinting at it, they're saying they're going to do it, but if it is just social spaces, that could be a problem. We'll have to see. Turning the picnic area past the bullpens into a season plan member lounge and a restaurant. How many restaurants do they need? That might be the 5th restaurant they want to put in, or maybe the 4th. So the area past the bullpen, so behind the bullpens you're talking about, or to the right of them, because they really should renovate their batter's eye. They need to renovate their batter's eye. I hope they do something like that. Removing some seats in the upper deck to create a bar that overlooks the field. So you may think that's the exact same thing as the other bullet point that, the 2 bullet points up from there. It says also to remove upper deck seats. I think they're talking about down the first base line. So they really want to poach seats out of this stadium. And the Guardians have done that as well, to where they've removed both sides of upper deck seating. So I would imagine they're talking about down the first base line. I don't know if I could find the rendering. It was from like 5 years ago. There was a rendering that showed what it would look like. And by the way, that seating underneath the upper deck area down the first base line, that like elongated, weird section of seating, that's 1000% going to be removed. And they're going to probably put another bar or restaurant area out in the upper deck. So this stadium is getting huge renovations. I think that's a bit of an overkill when you do that personally. But this is huge news that I guess I missed. And then it says enclosing part of the home plate plaza outside the park to allow for an expanded club level and upper deck, as well as another bar or restaurant. So they're going for the Guinness World Record for the most restaurants inside a stadium, I guess. I'm not even sure what that means. Enclosing part of the home plate plaza, which is, I guess, directly behind home plate outside of the park, to allow for an expanded club level and upper. How does that expand the upper deck? Are they talking? I don't know. That'll be an interesting. If they actually do that, that'll be interesting. But there's a lot they're going to be doing to this stadium. And again, it's not all that surprising. But I will say, at a certain point, it is a bit of an overkill. And another interesting thing is, how many seats do they take out in that left field upper deck? So you've got those 4 sections, and then you've got that angle. Do they also take the angle out, or do they leave it? I think they should probably leave the angled sections alone and just take those 4 sections out personally. Otherwise, it's a bit of an overkill if you take all of those 7 sections, the angled sections and the core sections, out beyond left field. It'll be interesting to see what they end up doing. Obviously, they already moved the fences back. That happened a few years ago. It's really not a renovation, though. And with this news, it is interesting because they said they wanted a ballpark village possibly, but this renovation cost seems like they're mainly going to be focusing on the interior of the stadium and removing a ton of seating for some bar, restaurant areas, the left field upper deck area, possibly the upper deck down the first base line, and then under it as well, along with possibly having some type of field level restaurant, which I would imagine is going to be located probably beyond right field, maybe. Are they going to take more seating out, possibly out in right field? I'm not sure. The center field batter's eye area really needs to be worked on, and it easily can be fixed. All I would do is I would put a hill up there and then put some very nice grass, and you've got a beautiful batter's eye. Or you could even have some fun with it, go with a fountain, go with some beautiful landscaping, kind of like the Rockies did. But if you are going to renovate the stadium, I would say the batter's eye definitely needs a tune-up as well. Think of something like the Pittsburgh Pirates batter's eye, how it's at an angle and they've got ivy. You could really do some things by propping up some dirt and on a hill, making it a very nice angle. And whether you have grass there or maybe some trees, things like that, that could potentially improve the ballpark. But it is fair to say this is an extensive renovation, and there are a few parking lots. One parking lot is directly behind the stadium that they've been scouting out, and then apparently there is another location behind the warehouse that they possibly will do some type of development. It's another parking lot right next to the railroad tracks right there. So that's another thing that could happen. But I would say you look out beyond the bullpens, there's possibly going to be some type of restaurant, possibly in right center field. They're going to take out some seats. There's going to be a restaurant there. You're going to talk about the social spaces out beyond left field in the upper deck. And certainly they could really modernize this ballpark. Look at what the Toronto Blue Jays did with the Rogers Center. That's a great blueprint. Now, technically, they had it a lot easier because their upper deck was smaller, that those social spaces really fit in seamlessly right up against the hotel, just the way it worked. But Camden Yards is a little bit different. It's going to be harder to do that, but they could really make Camden Yards pop. Certainly, you would expect it with $600 million. But again, it's a little bit hazy how much of that is actually going into the stadium, how much of that is going into the surrounding areas, possibly renovating 2 parking lots, turning them into some type of ballpark village. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And again, that is kind of an old article that I really didn't even know existed. That's why I had been speculating on the Orioles. What are they going to do? Well, that is the wish list. They are going to be renovating. They are going to be taking seats out of the left field upper deck area. They're probably going to be taking seats out in the upper deck down the first base line as well, along with several different restaurants. So I wonder when the renderings will actually be released on this huge scale renovation that's going to be happening to Camden Yards. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.